どうも、勝手に電力2.0で見始めたいと思います。今日はですね、1309回目というところで、実際にこの SDGs7 というところが、どう発展というか、どういうような評価されているのかみたいなところでね、少し見てみたいなと思ってますと。で、実際この Since its inception in 2018, tracking SDGs7, the Energy Progress Report has become the global reference for information on progress towards the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal 7 of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The report is produced annually by the 5 custodian agencies responsible for tracking progress toward the goal. The custodian agencies and the international agency IEA があったり、the International Renewable Agency IRENA があったり、the United Nations Statistic Divisions UNSSD, the World Bank and the World Health Organization WHO. The aim of SDG7 is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. This report summarizes global progress on energy access, energy efficiency, renewable energy, cleaning, cooking, and international cooperation to advance SDG7. It prevents updated statistics for each of the indicators and provides policy insights or priority areas and action needed to progress on SDG7. Figure ES1 offers a snapshot of the primary indicators for 2023, which were the midpoint of the implementation of the UN 2030 agenda. Despite some progress across the indicators, the current pace is not adequate to achieve any of the 2030 target of SDGs まだ十分じゃないってことですね。As in previous years, rate of progress vary significantly across regions, with some regions making substantial gains and some slowing their progress or even moving backward. Among the major economic factors impeding the realization of the goal are the uncertain macroeconomic outlook, high levels of inflation, debt, distress in the growing number of countries, equitable distribution of finance and other resources, supply chain bottlenecks, and soaring prices for materials. The effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the steady rise in energy prices since summer 2021 have been a further drag on progress, particularly in the most vulnerable countries and those that we are already lagging behind. Indicators 2015 and the latest year that proportion of population with access to electricity, the 957.5 million people without access to electricity ということで、797,957ミリオンっていうところは685、685 million のように、減ってきている。電気が使えない人が減ってきている。Proportion of population with primary reliance on cooking fuels and technology for cooking っていうところも2.7 billion, 22.7 billion people without access to clean cooking から22.1 billion people without access で減っていると。Renewable energy share in total final energy consumption っていうところも再エネも16.7% share of total final energy consumption from renewable っていうことで 18.7% で数パーセント上昇している。Energy intensity measured as a ratio of primary energy and GDP っていうのも4.9、4.9 megajoule per USD。primary energy intensity ということで減ってきていると。The international financial flows to developing countries in support of clean energy research and development and renewable energy production, including hybrid system. ということで、international financing flows to developing countries in the support of clean energy への投資も増えていると。で、installed renewable energy generating capacity in developing and developed countries ということで、実際に installed renewable capacity もここはかなり増えていると。250 watt per capita から424 capita per capita, watt per capita になっていると。で、今度、この SDG7 のところの access to electricity、電気へのアクセスですね。91% of the world population has access to electricity in contrast to 78% in the baseline year of 2000. There is much to celebrate in this progress. For example, 48 countries achieved universal access to electricity between 2010 to 2020. However, population growth outpaced access growth between 2020 and 2022, leaving 10 million more people without access in 2022 than in 2021. Multiple factors contributed to this reversal, among them disruption to energy markets and prices stemming from global shock such as COVID-19, the war in Ukraine, and instability in the Middle East. At the same time, the remaining unelectrified population is more challenging to serve because much of it is remote and low income. Under current scenarios, the energy access gap is projected to improve modestly, closing to 8% in 2030, leaving an estimated 660 million people without access. The largest growth in access between 2020 and 2022 was seen in Central and South Asia, where connections increased by an average of 14.1% people, 1 million people per year, nearly double the growth in population, 20.6 million. In contrast, the average annual increase in access in sub-Saharan Africa during the same period just barely exceeded average annual population growth. As a result, sub-Saharan Africa's share of the global deficit ballooned from 49.6% in 2010 to 83.3% in 2022. In Latin America, 18 countries achieved universal access over these same years. The urban-rural divide continues to shrink. Electricity access in urban areas increases from 96% in 2010 to 98% in 2020, staying ahead of population growth. Informal, poorly urban settlements will present a stiff challenge to bring urban access rate to 100%. Access deficit in rural areas shrunk from 886 million global in 2010 to 562 million in 2020. The steepest decline was in the Central and South Asia. By contrast, the deficit growth in rural areas of sub-Saharan Africa. Decentralized renewable energy can bring electricity to the difficult-to-reach rural locations where much of remaining unconnected population lives. In 2020, the IEA estimated that 2.5 million households gained electricity access thanks to solar home systems and smaller solar light systems. The World Bank finds that, in total, standalone off-grid solar solutions, including solar light and solar home systems, were estimated to serve 490 million people in 2022. ILENA estimates that 158 of the 490 million had access to solar light and home system meeting international quality standards. The World Bank has estimated around 47 million people were connected to 19,000 mini-grid as of 2022. Hydropower and solar technologies are increasingly being deployed and now account for a third of total mini-grid installed. Decentralized solar solutions, including standalone systems in remote and sparsely settled areas, offer a cost-competitive alternative to grid expansion and can be rapidly deployed to meet levels demand too low to justify grid investment. In addition, the productive use is in rural communities such as solar water pumps, refrigerators, agro-processing machinery, and a wide range of equipment for micro supplies contribute to socio-economic development and improve quality of life. Together, these can increase incomes and raise productivity, contributing to job creation. The emergence of new enterprise and economic growth. Increases in access to electricity must accelerate to achieve SDGs 7.1, and decentralized renewable energy will play a central role. Achieving SDG 7 by 2030 is possible only by deploying a combination of grid, mini-grid, and standalone off-grid solutions that leverage the faster deployment of distributed renewable energy to meet current levels of demand quickly. National and regional electrification programs using public funding to unlock provide co-investment at scale that can bring these solutions to life. SDGs 712, access to clean fuels and technologies for cooking. While there has been some progress in the global rate of access over the past 2 decades, the world is still not on track to achieve universal access to clean cooking by 2030. In 2022, 74% of the world population had access to clean cooking fuels and technologies such as stoves powered by electricity, liquefied petroleum gas, natural gas, biogas, on the ethanol, up from 64% in 2015, but approximately 2.1 billion people still rely on polluting fuels and technologies, charcoal, coal, crop waste, dung, kerosene, and wood as their main source of energy for cooking. If current trends continue, only 79% of the world population will have access to clean cooking by 2030. This leaves nearly 1.8 billion people in 2030 vulnerable to the adverse effects of polluting cooking fuels and technologies on their health and livelihood, not to mention their environment. By region, the access deficit has fallen constantly in Eastern Asia and Southeastern Asia since 20, and in Central Asia and South Asia in 2010. Looking at countries, the improvement has been driven chiefly by progress in the most populous low and middle income countries, such as India, China, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Pakistan. In sub-Saharan Africa, however, there has been a clear upward trend in the deficit as access to clean cooking has failed to keep pace with growing populations. Most of the global access deficit can be found in countries in that region, as well as in Central Asia and South Asia. In 2022, as estimated, 79% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa and 33% of people living in Central Asia and South Asia were still using polluting fuels and technologies for cooking. The urban-rural gap across regions has been narrowing in all regions except Sub-Saharan Africa, where it is rising sharply. In Sub-Saharan Africa, only 7% of rural households have access to clean cooking, while the figure is 40% in urban areas. In Latin America and the Caribbean, one of the most urbanized regions in the world, around 35% of the rural population still lack access to clean fuels and technology for cooking, around twice as much compared to urban areas. The heavy use of traditional biomass among rural populations result in higher household air pollution and adverse health outcomes, particularly among women and children. Among the specific fuels and technology being used by low and middle income countries in 2022, gaseous fuels, liquefied petroleum gas, natural gas, biogas remain the main source for cooking among 60% of people, 4 billion, while electricity was the main fuel of 8%, 550 million. Unprocessed biomass, wood, crop waste, dung, polluting alternatives was the main fuel of 26% of people and charcoal for 4%. The use of gas, LPG, natural gas, and biogas as a primary fuel in increasing at faster rate than electricity, both in rural areas and overall. However, in urban areas, the use of electricity is rising faster than gas. It should be noted that the simultaneous use of several different fuels and technologies is extremely common. That household energy survey data may not fully reflect the actual fuels and technologies being used on their proportions. The vast majority of low and middle income countries will miss the 2030 universal access target unless efforts are strengthened. However, there is growing momentum on the international agenda to advance clean cooking efforts, particularly in Africa, though various multilateral forums such as G7, G20, and COP, and increasing financial commitments from countries and companies. At the international level, collaborative efforts and focus on scalable and sustainable policies and intervention across governments, non-governmental organizations, the private sector, and the communities as a key to raising investment in universal access to clean cooking by 2030, and so reaping long-lasting health, social, and climate benefits. SDGs 7.2 Renewable Energy Target 7.2 aims at increasing the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix and raising per capita generating capacity from renewable sources. In 2021, the share of renewable energy in total final energy consumption as 18%. The share of modern renewable that is excluding traditional use of biomass was low 12%, just 4% points higher than in 2010. This is despite significant growth in modern renewable energy consumption, which increased by over 30% during this period, owing chiefly to the deployment of electricity generated from renewable sources. While no quantitative milestone has been set, the current trend is neither in line with the target nor consistent with internationally agreed climate objectives. To keep global climate targets in reach, the deployment of renewable energy must accelerate across the three key categories of electricity, heat, and transport. Renewable electricity represents one-third of global renewable energy consumption and half of modern renewable energy consumption. Use of renewable electricity increased by almost half between 2015 and 2021, driven mostly by wind and solar PV deployments. The rise increased renewable share in total electricity consumption from 23% to 28%. Meanwhile, renewable share in energy used for heating was 23% in 2021, but more than half of that came through traditional use of biomass, of which 95% was Africa and Asia. Excluding renewable energy and ambient heat, the share of modern renewable was just 10%. Renewables share in transport energy demand climbed to 4% in 2021, up from 3.5% in 2050, when biofuel, crop-based ethanol, and biodiesel still dominated. The growth was driven by the rise in electric vehicle sales and a higher proportion of renewables in transport-related electricity. Renewable electricity used in vehicles and trains grew 34% during this period, representing almost one-fifth of growth in renewables share in total energy consumed for transport. Renewable-based generating capacity continued to rise. In 2022, it reached 424 watts per capita globally, 1,073 watts per person in developed countries, and 293 watts per capita in developing countries. The 2022 average is more than the double that of 10 years prior. And progress across regions and countries varies widely depending on resource availability, policy support, consumption patterns, and energy efficiency performance. Latin America and the Caribbean shows the highest share of use of modern renewable energy at 28% TFEC in 2021, chiefly due to the consumption of bioenergy for industrial processes and biofuel for transport, as well as the important role of hydropower in the region. Between 2010 and 2021, the United Kingdom and Indonesia made the greatest progress in the use of modern renewables, up 9 and 7% points respectively in TFEC. The two countries were closely followed by China, India, and Germany, which chalked up increase of between 6 and 7% points. The action needed to triple renewable capacity by 2030 as agreed at COP28 in Dubai vary significantly by country, region, and technology. The so-called UAE consensus that emerged from the meeting calls for the tripling of the world renewable power capacity 2030. That consensus agreed to by more than 130 countries must now be embedded in national and international renewable energy targets and the plans accompanied by strong policy action. Deployment efforts in developing countries should be underpinned by international collaboration and finance to help achieve global energy and climate ambitions while reducing inequalities. That's all. Thank you.